Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Stemmer. I'm the founder of Stemmer Law, a law firm focused on all things copyrights and trademarks. We can be found at stemmerlaw.com. So I wanted to make a video talking about some trademark tips that new companies and startups in the US should consider when they're developing or in the process of protecting their brand. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. Starting with the basics. What is your trademark? Your trademark is your brand. It's the name customers know you as. It's how you present yourself to the consuming public. Most companies will have at least a name and a logo, like the name Nike and their logo, the swoosh, or Nike written in special font. This name of yours will be your housemark. Now, if your company is a little further along in the process, you might have more trademarks. Common other trademarks can be taglines, what I like to call sub-brands, and proprietary materials that you have created a unique name for. Starting with taglines. They aren't always trademarks, but a lot of times they are, so it's worth looking at. These could be slogans, phrases, catchy one-liners that you use. Nike's tagline, for example, "Just do it," is one of their registered trademarks. You might also have a portfolio of sub-brands. There are specific products that you offer that have their own unique name, and it's not the same as your housemark. A good illustration of sub-brands is Nike again, because in addition to Nike, their housemark, they also have specific names for their products, like Air Jordan shoes and Air Max. This can also be applied to specific services or service packages. Lastly, you might have a name that you use for proprietary material. Sticking with the Nike example again, they have a trademark for dry fit for their sweat wicking fabrics. Sometimes these also qualify as trademarks. So where do you find all this stuff? How do you start compiling a list of what your trademarks and your brands are? Take a look at your website, your product packaging, your brochures, your catalogs, any marketing materials. You want to keep an eye out for symbols, terms, names, anything that's unique or important to your company or that you see and repeat. Basically, anything that you would hate seeing another company use could be your trademark. Now, when you're in this process of searching for what your brands are, approach it not only from the space of, okay, these are our brands, this is what we need to protect, let's file a trademark application for XYZ, but approach it from a growth perspective. Maybe there's a tagline that you use here and there that you should start putting on all of your marketing materials to eventually develop that into one of your brands. Maybe you refer to a product of yours as something specific internally that you want to start using on your product packaging or another point of sale to create a trademark out of it. At the end of the day, the more intellectual property a company has, the more valuable they are and the more legitimate they seem to the consuming public. And having a lot of brands covered can also cast a wider net of protection for your brand as a whole, which will keep trademark attorneys like me happy. Now that you have an idea of what your trademarks are, you will want to look into filing trademark applications for them. Trademark practitioners recommend that you file trademark applications as soon as you are certain that is the brand you are going to use. The reason for that is that it will hold your place in line for the brand, and because you want to let it undergo legal examination during the application process before you've invested too much into the development of your brands, just in case the application process exposes issues with the long-term viability of your trademark. Now, what are some common issues with the long-term viability of your trademark? There are two big ones. First, trademarks can actually be too weak to work. A good example of too weak would be a word that describes what you offer, like having the brand creamy for yogurt. From a legal perspective, a trademark needs to work as a source identifier. So it has to be something that is distinctive enough for a consumer to see it and make a connection between it and the company who makes it. So trademark strengths sit on a spectrum from weak to strong, and you want yours to land somewhere in the middle towards strong, creamy for yogurt being on the weaker end, and the strongest trademarks are kind of made up words like Kodak or Xerox, or it can be a common word like Apple that is used on something completely unrelated like a computer. At the end of the day, the stronger your trademark is, the easier to protect and to maintain moving forward. Another issue that comes up is that someone might have beat you to it. So before you invest in your brand, you want to make sure that no one else was using it before you. You could end up infringing on their trademark, or if you file an application for your trademark, you could suffer a total block to registration. Trust me, even if you get away with it for a little while, it could come up in the future if the company that came before you suddenly wakes up and they want to enforce their rights. You might end up having to back off of your brand entirely when you have already invested a ton of resources into building your reputation and customer recognition. That's a nightmare. So as a precaution against that, trademark practitioners recommend what is called a worldwide clearance search. This is usually done by a company specializing in searches, then analyzed by a law firm, or sometimes even done totally in-house at a law firm. Either way, this can get a little pricey. So if you don't have the funds in your new company, there is a DIY option to do if your only other option is to simply do nothing. I plan to make a longer video about this process, but here's the gist. So your search will be in two parts, the USPTO database and just an internet search. What you're looking out for in these searches aren't just trademarks that are the exact same as yours. You would want to be looking for brand names that are similar to yours, being used by a company that offers goods or services similar to yours. In legal jargon, the trademarks as used on the products or services would have to be similar enough to lead to a likelihood of consumer confusion as to the source of the goods. To do a trademark database search for part 1 of your search, from uspto.gov, you can find a link to the search page on the trademark drop-down tab. They recently updated the entire interface and their search is actually pretty user-friendly, and the USPTO has educational resources on how to search. So for the second part of your search, will just be a regular internet search. So even if a brand is not on the trademark registry, they might actually have a lot of rights to the trademark just by using it. So keep in mind that even if you find a brand that is very obviously the same as yours, and you really still want to use your brand, I would contact an attorney to see if there's something that can be done. You would be surprised at how often there are strategies to clear the path for you to secure the brand you want. It's at least worth a call or an email. After you file an application, if you have immediate plans to offer your goods or services in countries other than the US, there's an international trademark system, which is an awesome tool. Through this system, you submit your US application to the US and then to the World Intellectual Property Office. From there, you can designate specific countries for them to send the application along to. It's a very efficient and streamlined way of spreading your brand if that's the direction that you're headed. Now, let's say you have submitted your applications, developed a lot of good brands that are covered. Let's look at long-term strategy. First, policing. As a trademark owner, you do have a responsibility to monitor and police your brand name in order to maintain trademark rights. That means attempting to stop others from using your brand who don't have permission to. Sometimes, especially if you have a really good or famous trademark, other people are going to start to use it, and usually those people are your competition. If that gets too out of control, your rights will weaken, and in extreme cases, you could suffer what's called genericide, where a brand name starts to get used as the generic name for something. Famous examples of genericide are escalator for moving stairs and flip phone, which used to belong to Motorola. Those used to be trademarks. The best way to prevent this is to sign up for a monitoring service with your law firm or to regularly conduct your own internet search. Some firms don't mind setting this up because generally if they do find something, it's billable work for them. If you find someone using your brand for something similar to what you do, you will want to send a cease and desist letter, either by yourself or through your law firm. Number 2, use it or lose it. Make sure to keep your trademarks in use. The US has a strict use requirement. If you go 3 or more years in a row without using it, without immediate plans to launch your brand again, you could lose those rights entirely. You know those little circle R designations and the TM? Well, you can use the TM whenever you want, but you can only use the circle R once your trademark is registered. And number 4, trade dress. If you have a unique packaging or even unique shape to your product, this can eventually turn into protectable trademark. A trademark is a distinctive source identifier, like I said earlier. And over time, this can actually become a packaging or the actual product that consumers recognize, like the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle or the shape of the goldfish cracker, which are actually both registered trademarks. It's something to keep in mind as you grow, and it's good to keep that in view because having those protected can come in handy one day. Well, that's it for now. I know this process can seem overwhelming, but I hope this has been helpful for you. If you end up needing help, feel free to reach out to us, or I'm sure you have a wonderful trademark attorney nearby.